They dangled this delicious morsel of, okay, we're actually going to do Thrawn in live action. And I thought, oh man, I'm so excited. Please, for the love of God, make this good. And they just ruined his character. It sucks, okay?
Hey everybody, it's time again for another Nerd Legion. It's been a while, once more, but Monty's travels have concluded for the moment, right? And so we should be getting back on track with this a little bit, and what better time to do that? Because Ahsoka is over. It ended last week.
Thank
The show
God.
has finished. I really enjoyed it. Monty apparently didn't. We haven't talked about this yet, so you're gonna get to see the discussion. Raw, unfiltered. We're shooting it at night, which is for some reason making the lighting look really weird in my office. So I put on lipstick for the occasion, apparently. I just got tired of messing with the color settings. This is not my area of expertise. That's why I don't stream. But we're here. We're going to talk about Ahsoka, and we're making it happen. So welcome back to Nerd Legion, Monty. Welcome back to both of us here on the bridge of the Millennium Falcon again. And Ahsoka, episodes 6, 7, and 8, the 3 final episodes of the series of what I said was going to be intentionally felt like a replacement for the sequel trilogy, and I think it delivered in that it was better than the sequel trilogy. So I don't think you can argue that. That's my first question to you, Monte Cristo. Are you actually, you say it's trash, but are you actually willing to go as far as saying that this was worse than the sequel trilogy?
It was extremely bad, but I finished this, unlike the sequel trilogy, of which I did not watch episode 9. However, I was also watching it for this show, so maybe I wouldn't have finished this either. They did Thrawn so dirty, man. This is what I was looking forward to this show.
Me
and
too.
Thrawn is he's just an idiot. He's just an idiot. Why did they make him an idiot?
I disagree. I don't think he was an idiot. I think Lars Mikkelsen crushed it as Thrawn. I think his intro was one of my favorite things I've seen in a long time in Star Wars. It was very, very cool. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. But the thing is, Thrawn's intro happens in the first episode we're going to talk about, episode 6, Far, Far Away, which doesn't get any points from me for a title. It's like, okay, yeah, we get it, right? A long time ago, Galaxy Far, Far Away. You're calling your episode Far, Far Away. And then Huyang has to be like, oh, I'm going to tell a story a long time ago in a galaxy. I'm like, don't do it. Far, Far Away. I'm like, oh. So, okay. We had that little moment where I wonder too if there was a little bit of meta commentary going on something in Star Wars, because they talked about the history of the galaxy, parts 1, 2, and 3, and Ahsoka goes, 1 being the best, of course. So I'm like, that's an odd thing to just say, Was that just Ahsoka, having liked that in her childhood in universe, or was that them like making a joke about people saying the Phantom Menace is always clearly the best of the prequels, or the first trilogy, the original trilogy, was the best of Star Wars? I feel like there was a little bit of meta commentary going on in that line. What do you think? Did you detect that at all?
No, I didn't think about that, but I agree with you now that you pointed out. I think it was probably the first trilogy or something like that. I don't think it was, the Phantom Menace in particular.
Ah, yes. History of the Galaxy, parts 1, 2, and 3.
1 being the best, of course.
Yeah, I think we see little shots taken at the fandom once in a while, which admittedly is well deserved, I think. But I thought that was cute. If that was the intent, I liked it. I picked it up and I enjoyed it. So they have that little moment while they're riding in the mouth of the Purrgil and going through hyperspace. I like the way they make hyperspace look in this series. I think it's a really neat effect, and I enjoy watching Purrgils enter and exit hyperspace.
Did you ever wonder why purgils have baleen? Is there some sort of space krill that we're not seeing? I
Yeah.
have questions about what they're eating.
Well, they just want to filter out all the space junk, man. They get like Starlink satellites stuck in there otherwise. Like you don't want that stuff, you know? I mean, to be fair, and you got called out on social media. You got called out about this for saying, don't they have dash cams in the future about the situation, about the plans and all that? Monte Cristo, you know. This is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's
I love how people
futuristic,
just can't.
but it's not the
Yeah,
future.
exactly. I should have said futuristic technology. My bad.
How dare you?
And people just ignore the
owned.
actual point. Ignore the actual point, which is that there's
Yeah.
no way that Hera wouldn't have evidence of the hyperspace ring jumping into hyperspace.
Yeah.
Which does tie into the episodes as she is court-martialed or sentenced before put before the tribunal, which is another terrible scene.
That's
show
the next
is just,
episode. We'll get to that, but yeah, no love there for that scene from me either. But we'll get there. So going back to episode 6, though. You know, the fear that Ahsoka has that Sabine made the selfish choice to go after Ezra, which obviously she did. I don't think there was any sort of like grand master plan to be like, well, if I link up with Ezra, we can stop Thrawn together. I think it was just like, she just, I don't know, wants to see Ezra again, I guess.
what the
I'm not
fuck
sure.
is Sabine's obsession with Ezra?
I don't know.
One of the major problems with this show is that it assumes that you have seen Rebels and Clone Wars and that you know these characters or have some sort of affinity for them, because otherwise this entire thing just falls flat. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know or care about Sabine's relationship with Ezra. I don't care about Ezra, which means that this touching, quote unquote, reunion that happens has no emotional
like that
resonance
scene.
for me whatsoever. It's boring. The dialogue is terrible. And I guess I'm supposed to feel something by seeing Ezra again. But considering I've never seen Ezra before, the scene just doesn't work. And also, Sabine's actress is terrible. She is terrible.
You didn't need to feel anything because there was nothing to feel in that scene. Because I understand this is kind of Rebels season 5, but it still has to, you know,
stand alone and be comprehensible.
It has to accept the fact there's a lot of people that haven't seen Rebels. I was disappointed by that scene because we were led to believe this would be a big moment, right? Where I was imagining Ezra being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here. How did you get here? I've been trapped. I've been living with these hermit crab people for like years. I even learned their language, but I didn't teach them Galactic Basic because they don't deserve it. Dirty
but he does,
people.
because he actually gives them orders in just talking in English later.
It, though. He didn't teach them
but they didn't understand Sabine when she showed up and asked where Ezra Bridger was, and they were super confused about that. Yet later, Ezra is actually giving them instructions in English. This show doesn't hold together at all, though. This show is so shit. Like, from scene to scene, nothing makes sense. Because I was so confused, because the hermit crab people, when Sabine finds them, don't seem to understand her at all, including her asking about his name, which is probably the first thing that those hermit crabs would learn about somebody who's been living with them for years.
Yeah,
unless he just lied to them and gave them a different name. And then they can't understand that she wants to see him. But then later, Ezra is seen like telling them to go inside their little very slow ships, whatever.
I liked that. I liked them.
Armadillos. But
I call them. Go ahead.
But how can he? Why is he talking to them in their own language and then talking to them in whatever English, Galactic Basic, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, you got it. Galactic Basic. I'm glad.
Galactic Basic. So he's talking to them and giving them instructions in that. So what the hell?
Now you got me thinking. What if he was like, well, these I call them hobbit crabs because they're hermit crabs and they dress like hobbits. But what if he gave these hobbit crabs just like the name of like a Jedi he thought was really cool? Like what if, and then that was an embarrassing moment when Sabine Wren showed up, because they were like, Ezra Bridger, who's that? We only know Mace Windu, and she's like, Mace Windu? Didn't he die like years ago? And then Ezra's like, oh yeah, I've been telling him I'm Mace Windu because he was a cool Jedi. That embarrassing moment. Or Plo Koon. Everybody loves Plo Koon. Or he's like, hey, they don't know me as Ezra Bridger. They only know me as Kit Fisto. Famous Jedi,
my
of course.
point is like I don't understand the what is so infuriating about this show is the internal logic it sets up for itself is just destroyed in the very like every time you see internal logic, it's just completely shattered in the next episode that occurs.
See, I admit that I was taken in by the unabashed Star Warsiness of the show.
Yeah, that part is good.
To the point where I forgave pretty much all of that stuff. I noted it and I was like, well, that's dumb. But I'm like, the show is so beautiful. And I like a lot, so many of the things they're doing with it. So to me, the things I like about the show are overshadowed a lot of the things you're talking about, which absolutely exist. But I was totally taken in by the magic again. I admit,
unfortunately,
they got me.
Unfortunately, while I agree with you, they have nailed the aesthetic and it is very beautiful. And I really like what they've done with practical effects as opposed to CGI.
Yeah.
The way they've designed the characters, the way they've designed the sets, this is all fucking awesome. Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
The problem is that the characters themselves are stupid. Some of the actors like Sabine are really bad, really bad. The dialogue is complete trash. And the story doesn't make any sense, and the characters themselves are just dumb, apparently, as we've already learned.
There's a lot of dumbness going on, but I thought this episode had a lot of good things in it, though, like but mostly visual. The Eye of Sion exiting hyperspace, just like this huge, massive object. It made me think, like, I wish we would have gotten to see the Death Star going through hyperspace. That would have been really cool, because it had hyperspace capability. Yeah. That was what was so menacing about it, right? Is that it could show up anywhere, and then suddenly 10 minutes later, your planet is gone. So, but I liked the Great Mothers, the aesthetic there. It was a very Dune.
To be fair, the Death Star would be pretty useless if you couldn't move it. You just build it around one planet, destroy that planet, and then it just floats away in space.
Well, apparently it's not a problem to build another one. So they're just like, oh my gosh, what's that ship doing? It's like leaving that one piece of metal in space, and like what? And then over the course of several months, you're like, they're building a big ball up there. What are they doing? And then after a couple of years, you're like, they're putting like a big circle in the ball. What is that? And they're like, what are they? They're building a new moon. What are they doing for us? And then finally one day you look up and like, why is it glowing green like that? And then your planet is gone. They've built the entire Death Star outside your planet.
Then they have to disassemble it and take it to a different system.
All right, take it apart. Yep. Some guys some stormtroopers on the outside, like taking the first couple screws out. He's like, oh man, I hate this part. It takes forever.
So anyway, it would be pretty useless if you couldn't move it.
That is true. But anyway, so the Great Mothers looked great. I loved Thrawn's entrance. That is easily my favorite scene in the show. It's just so great because you hear this rumbling in your toes. Then this Star Destroyer is slowly, approaching, and you see it's all beat up and repaired and stuff like that, and it almost looks like a ghost ship almost, because it's essentially kind of a ghost army, right? That Thrawn is sort of this legendary disappeared, admiral or whatever. And then it's got all the painting on the bottom to have sort of the Dathomir Witch aesthetic and all that. And then you see like the stormtroopers all lined up and all their armor is like beaten up and repaired, and their comms are broken, so they sound all strange. And then Enoch has like the eyes wide shut trooper face, apparently. And then Thrawn walks up, and like you hear like the fanatical loyalty that they have for him, and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's a true warlord or whatever. And he walks up and he delivers like what I thought was a really great line, which was like, what was first just a dream has become a frightening reality for those who may oppose us.
What was first just a dream has become a frightening reality for those who may oppose us.
And it was like, it was cool to me because Thrawn is the type of character that is so prepared for everything that it seemed like he had even prepared a ceremony for when he was finally rescued. He even like had that down. So it was all rehearsed. It was ready to go. He delivers it like this, like, elder statesman, and I was like, dude, this guy is badass. He's a serious business person in space.
So except here's the problem, DoA.
Yeah.
You say that he's supposed to be prepared for everything, which he is in the books. He is prepared for absolutely nothing within this show, and he is a complete buffoon when it comes to dealing with tactical situations, which is very disappointing. And look, here's another aspect of of Thrawn that they got in there is that Thrawn really cares about aesthetics, right? In the books, he is like a very deep appreciator of art, and so that has been, that is something that they carried with him, and you can really see how awesome the aesthetics of the stormtroopers and of the Chimera, his ship, is on this show, right? And so he brings this very different flair than we're used to with the Imperial Navy than we've seen prior, right? Everything is performative with Thrawn. And so you get that aspect for sure.
They all nailed it. And Lars Mikkelsen is perfect, I think, in this role.
Yeah, he's great.
The sound, the look, like Thrawn, he looks very sinister, but he doesn't look threatening, if that makes sense. Like, he's not the type of person that you'd be worried about, like, beating you up, but he just has this air about him that he's, he knows everything about you, and he knows how to talk around everything. I feel like he brought that, gravitas, as it were, to the role. I think he's great.
Yeah, it got me psyched, and then I was disappointed by everything he did from that point forward.
Well, we'll get to that. Let's move on, because in this episode he doesn't really do a whole lot. He just kind of hangs out. He's like, all right, start loading the ship, let's go. And then he sends off Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati to go take out Sabine Wren. He's like, yep, you can go, get out there, go find Ezra. And then he immediately sends the two to kill him. But we find out that that Baylan Skoll has an ulterior motive, which we've kind of always known, but this is where it kind of starts to really materialize. And you have that really great little conversation between him and Shin Hati about his history with the Jedi Order, and it really makes you sympathize with him, because if you go back and watch the prequels, you really see like the Jedi Order at its most fanatical and dysfunctional, and like what's the word I'm looking for? They have too big of a opinion of themselves. They're very haughty at that point in the prequels,
they're pompous.
right? Yeah, they're pompous, exactly, and they've fallen sort of into disarray in that in their extremeness, right? So many rules, so many regulations, but kind of a detachment to the actual Force. Like Mace Windu, even in the prequels, mentions that maybe it's time we tell people we can't access the Force as well as we used to, but it seems like all the rules they're placing on themselves are kind of pushing themselves away from being, really in tune with the Force. So when Baylan Skoll says, I love the idea of it, but not the reality. You really saw that, I felt like, in the prequels. And to George Lucas's credit, I think he did a really good job in the prequels of showing the Jedi Order at their worst, right? And showing that this is an entity that, like, at one time was the shining beacon in the galaxy, but now is really kind of like deteriorated, and became fanatical and all this stuff. And
I miss the idea of it, but not the truth, the weakness. There was no future there.
So I like that that was kind of his reason, he liked the idea of what the Jedi Order stood for, but he felt like they didn't really deliver on it. And so he kind of just abandoned it, So I think there's a lot of sympathy for that character. I like it a lot.
So what I don't understand about Thrawn's first action here. So by the way, this is the big problem with Thrawn, is that he doesn't do anything smart at any time or anything unexpected. Remember that this character was set up within the Timothy Zahn novels to be more clever. That's his power, right? He is supposed to be fighting an underdog battle against a superior force with the remnants of a shattered empire with no Force users, right? And he's winning. So he has to outsmart people. And he literally, like, if you took me and put me in this show, I could make all of the same decisions that Thrawn makes, which is the problem, because they're the most obvious solutions to these problems, except a lot of the time he doesn't even do it well. He sends too few people. So he knows that Ezra Bridger is on this planet and he is a Jedi, right? Or he is a Force user. And so to me, I understand why perhaps he couldn't kill Ezra previously with his available resources. So it was
too costly.
Easier just to avoid him because Obviously, you can take out an infinite number of stormtroopers as a Jedi. That doesn't matter. Although he does have the Great Mothers later on, so you would think maybe he would use them to try and deal with Ezra. But I will accept that maybe it was too resource intensive to kill Ezra previously, and now that Shin Hati and Baylan are here, that he actually has the opportunity to do that. But why would you just send these two people to kill Sabine and Ezra when you now have air support, you have military vessels that you can send with them, you have TIE fighters, you have troop transports? Why the hell are you just sending these two people to go deal with Ezra, who I can assume is only still alive at this point because you couldn't kill him previously? He was too powerful. So that doesn't make any sense.
I always had the assumption through these 3 episodes that it felt like what Thrawn was trying to do was not kill them, but just delay them. It felt like he knew he couldn't expend the resources to actually take them out, so he was just trying to hold them back long enough so he could escape. Because he's like, I don't need to kill them. I just need to get out and then strand them here, which is, what happened kind of in the end. So I kind of got the sense he was never really trying to kill them.
To go kill them.
Yeah, but it never really felt like he expected that to happen, Like he never in the series went like, oh man, I can't believe they didn't get him. It seemed like he just he's like, all right, well now we do this thing. And then like everything he sent at them just seemed to push them back a little bit and get him a little bit further ahead in the race to escape.
But they're distracted. That's the whole point, is that he doesn't need to send anybody to kill them because her mission is simply to find Ezra. Right?
Yeah. But
he has no intention. Here's the thing.
But wouldn't she bring Ezra back to try to escape with him then?
But he has no intention of marooning Baylan and Shin Hati there.
I think he does.
Why would he do that?
Because I think he doesn't care about them at all. He's like,
he doesn't care about them, but that's true. But he doesn't have an intention to maroon them on the planet.
I think he saw it as, we'll send these other Force users out to take on these other Force users, and whatever happens with them, fine. Like, as long as they're out of my hair. That's the impression that I got anyway, is that I felt like he just saw them as extra diversions from what his main objective was, and so he just wanted to sort of shunt them to the side and get them out of the way. That's my take on it anyway. I don't feel like I'm explaining away anything here too. I feel like that's kind of what happened.
Okay.
I don't know.
This is one of his better decisions. Let's put it that way. We'll get into how stupid the rest of it is.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit of stupid at the end of the episode here, where finally Sabine meets Ezra, and we've been led to believe this was going to be some sort of big emotional moment. Like, Ezra being like, oh my gosh, I've been trapped on this planet for so long. Oh, it's so good to see you. How did you get here? And then you have this moment where Sabine, can't hide what she's done. And then there's immediate conflict, right? Because Ezra is happy to see her, but then horrified that she would enable Thrawn with a way to get out and cause countless loss of life, right? So I thought this was going to be really great, where we get this mix of emotion, right? Where we'd have this high of them meeting each other, Ezra's so relieved, to then immediate conflict between two of our good guys, right? Two of our main characters, our protagonists. But instead, Ezra's just standing there and he's like, hey, took you long enough. Good to see you.
Though, sure took you long enough.
And I'm like, what? Really? You've been trapped here for years with the hobbit crabs? They seem nice, to be fair. They seem nice. But still, Sabine shows up out of nowhere. You finally think you can maybe go home, and you have next to no emotional reaction to this. And he's like, hey, how'd you get here anyway? And she's like, let's not talk about it. And he's like, okay. I'm like, what?
And then he asks, where's Ahsoka?
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah,
so they literally talk about nothing. Nothing happens.
Yeah, if I was Ezra, I'd be like, well, then what are we going to talk about? You just show up out of nowhere and you won't tell me anything about how you got here? Like, what? Like, yeah, the weather's nice. Here, meet my crab friend. Have a crab burger. Krabby Patty. Here, we'll make you a crab RV too. Like, it's, I don't know what happened when they were writing that scene, but it was profoundly disappointing.
The dialogue in this scene is also trash, and like I said earlier, because I haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels, I have no emotion when I see Ezra.
Well,
so
they have no emotion when they see each other. So why should we?
Exactly.
Yeah, completely dropped the ball on that. That was
It's terrible.
I have no sympathy for that scene. That was because I feel like led on and then, you know, denied the big emotional payoff, right? Like we thought this was we were told this was a big deal, and then it apparently was not like a huge deal. They met each other like they would have in like an episode of a cartoon. You know, you can't have that kind of meeting in like episode 6 of a show like this, right? Where basically the entire series has been leading up to this moment, right? So, you know, there's two big moments.
They never clarified,
show, right? And that's one of them.
They never clarified Sabine's reason for wanting to see Ezra. Like, I don't know why Sabine is obsessed with Ezra. I understand that they were friends, but at the end of the day, why is she willing to sacrifice everything to go save him? That is what I don't understand, because she doesn't even know if he's alive. She has now endangered absolutely everyone who is still alive that she cares about, and she's endangered the New Republic because she needed to see Ezra. But I don't understand where this fundamental need comes from, because I haven't seen any of their relationship, and it's never explained properly.
Let's do a similarity look. Let's look at the similarity here between this situation and Luke leaving his training early on Dagobah to go to Cloud City to rescue his friends. Now, it's a very similar situation, right? You have two characters making arguably bad decisions to go and help their friends. That's the basic premise of both of these things. The difference is that in Star Wars, in the original trilogy, we've seen everything these three characters have been through together. We know the emotional connection they have, and it's not a romantic connection, but we know it's a deep friend connection, right? It's family essentially for Luke, right? His parents are gone, his aunt and uncle are dead, Obi-Wan is dead. This is the only family he has in the world. So even though it's a bad decision, you can totally see how he does it, right? Whereas with Sabine,
hold up,
sure, people are going to say there's been 4 seasons of Rebels, you know, but yeah, it doesn't matter because this is a standalone TV show, right? And we need those stakes to be established for TV show viewers as well, you know?
Yeah, and also in Luke's case, why it made sense was several things. First off, he knew his friends were still alive, right?
That too, yeah.
There's nothing to say that Ezra Bridger is still alive, right? Mm-hmm. And here's the other thing. The risk was only to Luke himself.
Well,
if it's
I disagree there, because he's theoretically the last, you know, light side force user. So I think Yoda was saying, well, if he dies, obviously Yoda's still light side force user, but if Luke dies, then the hope for the galaxy dies. So that's the stakes, you know,
except
in that situation.
We know that's not true, because there were still other Jedi that existed. Like Ahsoka's out there.
Yeah, but only Luke could get through to Daddy Vader.
Oh, okay. Well, Cal Kestis is still out there. Anyway, the point is that there are other fragmented Jedi. Remember, there are a lot of Jedi, so the odds that there were 0 that could hide.
Out there.
Yeah, Balin. Look, they're all out there. There's tons of people out there.
Yeah.
So anyway, it doesn't make any sense, because, you know, Luke is only endangering himself at that point in time, and he also thinks that he can take on Vader, which he tries to do at the time. So he's trying to actually accomplish the core mission that he was given. Is he young and arrogant and foolish? Yes, but we understand his motives. Sabine's motives are crazy, because Ezra may not even be alive. She surrenders herself and then takes a massive random ass leap of faith, which also might endanger literally everybody else she cares about.
The entire galaxy.
She's actually just a psychopath.
She puts the whole galaxy at risk, and she has a history of this too. Let's talk about this for a second. Sabine in this show has a history of endangering innocent people. Remember way back at the hospital, she's like, I'm just going to take this droid head apart, and you know what? If it blows up the hospital, I'm okay with that. And everyone else seems to be okay with that too, except for Huyang. Thank you, Huyang, who saves everyone. But you know, this is just another indication that Sabine, is kind of a crazy person. She's not looking out for anybody but herself, which doesn't paint a good picture. And there's no...
And she's arguably suicidal as well, because she doesn't have any regard for her own life.
Yeah, there's no the robot head thing kind of proved that, but like droid head, I should say. But and what we're going to see as we go through these other 2 episodes is that there really is no consequence for this either, which is a major problem. And remember, I'm saying all these things from the perspective that I liked the show. I had a lot of fun watching the show, and I'm really looking forward to season 2. I really, really liked it. But you have to call out the things that need to be called out, and that's definitely one of them. So let's move on to episode 7, Dreams and Madness. Ooh. So it's the Welcome Back Ezra episode, right? Ezra's back in the fold. He's hanging out. But first, we got to have a scene where Hera is once again in front of the boring council and gets the most literal dose of Deus Ex Machina ever delivered in a show. It's Deus Ex Droid. And 3PO shows up out of nowhere. It's like, hey. So Leia said it was okay, and everyone's like, oh, Princess Leia. And all the Star Wars fans that are not not really too deducive in their analysis of these shows are like, they said Princess Leia. Ah, who cares? If you put her in the show, give her an actual appearance. Recast her. Recast Baylan Skull. Recast Luke Skywalker. Give new actors a chance to play these roles. I'm going to say it again.
I mean, they recast Mon Mothma. Why can't they recast these other people?
Yeah, they recast Han Solo. Come on. If you can recast Han Solo, you can recast everybody. It's okay to recast characters. If you wanted Leia to exonerate Hera, don't just send in C-3PO again. Sure, we all love C-3PO, but not like this.
I just enjoyed it because, to your point, it was actually more of a literal Deus Ex Machina in this case.
It was literal
because there was a machine.
yeah, deliverance by the machine. Yeah,
I hate it when writers do this, when they just insert Deus Ex Machinas to solve the problems. It's like Hera got into all this trouble. Now, was the trouble she got into stupid? Because they definitely had evidence as we went over on our last show that this was going to be a huge problem. Even if they didn't have scans, guys, don't you think that the stealing of massively powerful military technology in these hyperspace drives, because there's one thing that they definitely know, which is that Imperial remnants led by Morgan Elsbeth stole really powerful engines. Right. If you went and you stole a bunch of very powerful military engines from the United States government, do you think they'd be like, nah, there's no evidence that this foreign nation is gearing up for some conflict against us?
Monty, 2 people died.
Yeah,
2 people died when that ship went to light speed. Two X-Wings crashed into each other, and 2 people died. Does anyone on the council care about that or wonder where they're at? They're just like, they're flying around, they died. Whatever, it happens. Starships are dangerous. What can you say? Hera's like, well, no, it's just all this. Like, no, I'm sure it just was an accident, horrible accident. But so it's dumb to the sense of like being willingly dumb. And like, are they setting up that one senator to be like an Empire Remnant guy? Yeah, probably, because it's obvious, and I hate that. But like, yeah, probably. When Thrawn there's going to be like an episode, there's going to be a scene in like the first episode of season 2 where that guy's alone in his office and like the comms crackle to life. And he's like, who is it? And then you hear Lars Mikkelsen being like, have you had a dream lately that's now becoming a nightmare for those who may oppose us? And he's like, Thrawn? He's like, yes, it's me. Have you been screwing everything up over there in the New Republic? And he's like, yes, Thrawn, I have. He's like, good. Continue to do that. Goodbye. And then that's going to be a scene. I've got such a bad feeling that there's going to be a scene in like the first episode of next season because it's so obvious. Thus, it is probably true.
But yeah, to your point, the Deus Ex Machina just solving this problem, and we can agree that the problem itself was stupid, but it's even stupider to solve this problem this way, where they basically just admit that Leia fabricated the approval, and therefore everything's fine now, and everything's over. Leia. So there were no consequences for anything. So what is the point of having this entire conflict? Nothing happens at the end of it.
Those 2 pilots died for nothing. That dude from Kim's Convenience, he lost 2 good friends that day, and nobody cares. And that's a tragedy.
Just think about this. This is how badly this show is written, DoA. if you just didn't have this plot,
Yeah.
we started and ended at exactly the same point with the Hera subplot, which is that Hera believes that there is a threat, and Mon Mothma is intrigued, and no one else believes it. That is literally where we started before she went to investigate the shipyard where the engines were being stolen. So we saw no advancement whatsoever in any kind of storyline, and it was completely pointless.
No, you don't understand, Monty, because in Star Wars, there has to be symmetry. There has to be a yin and a yang, a light side and a dark side. We have a giant thing that moves very quickly, so we have to have a giant thing that goes absolutely nowhere. Don't you see the symmetry? This plot line is the plot, like alternative to the Eye of Sion. It's like poetry. It rhymes. It's beautiful.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How fans justify that in like shitty writing in Star Wars is fucking amazing to me.
And I will say,
they always say,
go ahead.
it's like George Lucas said, it's like poetry. It rhymes. Therefore, we can just do the same plots over and over and over again. And that's good because it's intentional. No, it's shit. It's complete dog shit.
It's bad poetry.
Yeah, and by the way, there can be bad poetry. Spoiler, guys, not all poetry is good.
I wrote some in grade school, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So
this I was just enraged because at the end of the day, I wasted so much time on this subplot, and it ended up exactly where it started, and so much of this show. We'll talk about it, but nothing actually happens in this entire show.
And you know what?
Nothing happens in this show.
You know what's crazy? I still love this show. I'll
you,
say it
man.
again. I can't wait for season 2. They got me, Monty. They got me. I admit it. They hooked me. They hooked me with the Star Warsiness. There wasn't nostalgia or anything. This is just new Star Wars, and it's goofy, and there's tons of dumb stuff, but man, it looks good, and I feel great watching it. So they got me. I admit it. I
feel bad because they massacred one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. So that's really unfortunate for me.
We can talk about that after we talk about the massacre of the Purgils as they come out of hyperspace right into a minefield. Oops. Too bad, apparently, Jedi starfighters, or not a Jedi starfighter, but Ahsoka Tano's ship has no problem dodging mines and just flies right through it. No problem at all. Hangs out in the bones of the Purgils. Thanks, Purgils. Sorry everybody died. I mean, some of them got away in hyperspace, which was fun to see. But thanks for giving us a ride. It's like, imagine calling an Uber, and then when they get to the destination, it's just a minefield, and you're like, okay, can you drive me like halfway across, and I'll walk the rest of the way? That's what she did to those poor Purgils. 1 star. Do not pick up Ahsoka Tano again. That's not a good idea. She gets out. And then she gets to the planet somehow. It's not very interesting, so we can just skip it.
I mean, that part is kind of interesting.
Why is it interesting?
Because she gets flushed out by Thrawn, right?
Because he's so smart.
No, in fact, that's the problem, DoA. The problem is he's not smart. The problem with this show is that Thrawn doesn't ever do anything. He just has other people do things for him.
It's called delegating.
The Great Mothers. No, he doesn't even use his own brain. All he does is he says, hey, Great Mothers, can you find her for me? And then I will shoot guns at it. It's literally his plan.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm going to find her and ambush her. And then later on, he says, hey, Morgan Elsbeth, can you just go deal with them for me so I could get away? He doesn't do anything. He doesn't have, his plans are so straightforward.
See,
he talks a big game. He talks a big game, and he uses all kinds of fancy words. And he says things like, aha, this was my plan all along. Don't you see? We have to learn about our enemies. But at the end of the day, his only plan is making other people do things for him. He tells the Great Mother just to use their powers to find Ahsoka. He sends Balin and Shin Hati off on the mission to kill/delay them. He sends Morgan Elsbeth on a mission to delay them. He never does anything. His plan is just tell people to do things.
You're missing another beautiful piece of symmetry where Grand Admiral Thrawn is clearly an allegory for late-stage capitalism and the CEOs of our current mega corporations that just, they don't use their brains. They just tell other people to do things. It's so deep. It made me think so much. Oh my goodness, that's going to be a clip on TikTok and people are going to believe me? Oh no, what have I done? But I wanted to see the difficult thing with Thrawn. And I need to go back and watch Rebels season 3 and 4 because I'm really curious about how they handle him in that. Because the difficult thing with Thrawn is that his power comes from his knowledge, right? And his knowledge comes from his love of art and history and all this kind of stuff. At the very beginning of Heir to the Empire, he defeats a little strike force of rebels by being able to identify what species they are by the way they're flying their ships because he's familiar with their art history or whatever. And like,
yes.
So that is a very difficult thing to translate to cinema, right? So I think part of it.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. But it's hard to have a lot of scenes of him just like reading books about art. That's I feel like you could do it in an interesting way.
You just have him monologue about what he's going to do.
I would love that, but do you think they would actually put that in the show right now? That's the sad thing.
I mean,
would love
they
to
would
see
have put it in. The writers would have put it in Andor. Just gonna put that out there. There's tons of monologuing in Andor.
You got me. They probably would have. Put Thrawn in Andor. He'll be young Thrawn. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, man. Like Thrawn's plans are the most boneheaded, straightforward plans. It's why I said earlier I could make all of the decisions that he makes, because given the available information that he has, he makes the most obvious choice every single time. Tell the crazy great mother Force witches to find Ahsoka, then shoot her with guns. Okay, Ahsoka escapes. Well, we're going to send, Baylan, Skull, and Shin Hati down there to deal with Ezra and Sabine. Yeah. Oh, Ahsoka might be there too. Let's send some armed transports full of stormtroopers to go kill them. It's literally the most obvious plan you could ever have in this situation. Send goons to shoot.
But again, I still believe that I got the vibe that he was never actually trying to kill them. He was just trying to delay them. That was always the sense I got, is that at least when I was watching it.
Who cares? Who cares?
Because he's just trying to escape. He doesn't care about killing them. He just wants to leave them there.
The whole purpose of his character is to outsmart people, and he never outsmarts anybody. He only makes the most obvious decisions. He doesn't do anything clever. And in fact, he fails, and then he justifies his failure in this episode as, well, we learned more about our enemies, as if that's going to help him somehow in the future. Also, what the hell did Thrawn learn? That stormtroopers die to Jedis? Like, doesn't he have infinite information that this is true already?
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't make any sense, because even Morgan, you can see Morgan Elsbeth's disbelief when he's explaining how losing is a good thing, because now they learned something. And she just looks like she thinks he's a complete idiot, which he is, by the way, a complete buffoon, because he is somehow trying to explain that not killing them was the best outcome. DoA, it is absurd. It is absurdly bad. Clearly, just killing them would have been the result, not, oh, yes, this was my plan all along. Not to kill them, but to learn about them. No, it wasn't. You wanted to kill Thrawn. You literally wanted to kill them. You told people to kill them.
In my defense, I forgot he said that until you mentioned it right now. But that is some damning evidence, isn't it?
One might even call this first match with Tano a success.
I see only our enemies reunited.
That is a concern. Yeah.
It's so bad, man. It's so terrible. He's such a moron.
On the bright side, we did get a neat fight scene between the bandit tribe, some stormtroopers, the Noti, which is the Hobbit crabs. I felt like it was a very Star Wars-y conflict, right? Where you had sort of a chase scene going with the dudes on wolves, and then the Noti and their little RVs, and then you had Jedi doing Jedi things. Ezra's like, I'm a Force monk now. I don't need a lightsaber. And he kind of backs it up, which is neat. But then he kind of just immediately builds a lightsaber again. So I think he decided he actually did need one next episode. But it was neat seeing him kind of not need one for a little bit. I wish they would have kind of stuck with that and made him sort of like, yeah, this like Force monk or whatever. But nah, lightsaber swinging around. You need it. But that brings us to the final episode.
No.
Oh,
Here's my favorite thing about
go ahead.
what happened in this last episode compared to the next episode as a point of transition that just shows how dumb Thrawn is again. So at the end of this episode, when he loses the fight, he says to Morgan, well, Ahsoka lost the only thing she couldn't afford to lose. Time.
Ahsoka Tano has lost the one thing she could not afford to lose today. Time. Time is very much on our side now.
As if they're going to go, because as you said, they're trying to escape and they got delayed, right?
Yeah.
So cut to the very next episode when Ahsoka is driving, the spaceship is flying at like 3 miles an hour over the crab RVs, and they're just chilling. They don't seem concerned about time whatsoever. In fact,
that did bother me a little bit.
DoA, they have so much time that Thrawn can send 2 TIE fighters to go kill them immediately. And they have time for yet another battle with the TIE fighters.
They literally just crashed their ship into it. And then they had time to fix it. Go ahead.
Thrawn says that they lost the only thing that they had, which was time, which they didn't, because everyone is not concerned about Ahsoka, and no one is concerned about time whatsoever. They had plenty of time to get there and mess up their plans. So what the hell? Thrawn is just a dumbass. Like, what the hell is he even talking about?
I don't know why they didn't just fly Ahsoka's ship right up to like the temple immediately. I guess maybe you could argue that there were a lot of TIE fighters in the Chimera and or the Chimera, and they would they'd easily take out Ahsoka's ship. But I don't know. She dodged all those mines and things.
So again, also, why did Thrawn only send 2 TIE fighters? Why doesn't he send like 50 TIE fighters?
That's a waste.
How is it a waste, DoA? They can just fly back to the Chimera and then leave after they kill them. Also,
he doesn't want to lose
what the hell is wrong with Ahsoka and Ezra and Sabine? Because they're all idiots too. So they know that Thrawn knows where they are because he sent troop transports full of stormtroopers to kill them.
Yeah.
And they are just chilling with the crabs, flying super slowly and get ambushed.
How else can you have exposition? You can't have exposition if you're moving quickly.
Oh my!
you gotta
nobody's
slow down
actions
for that.
make any sense. Nobody's actions make any sense. Thrawn was wrong. They had plenty of time to do anything. He had plenty of time to make another attack. He doesn't send enough ships. Why are Ahsoka and Ezra and Sabine just hanging out, waiting to die and waiting to be attacked again when they know their enemy knows where they are and actively wants to kill them? How does any of this make sense?
Can I counterpoint with the fact that it was neat seeing the Great Mothers power up Morgan Elsbeth and give her a magic sword? I was like, that's something you don't see in Star Wars very often.
Okay.
You hate me right now. Yes, feel the hate flowing through you.
That was fine, I guess.
I love it. It was cool. It was cool. I did like I did like the expansion of the supernatural side of the universe with that kind of stuff too. That there's a lot more applications of the Force than just Jedi and Sith, or light side and dark side even. It was neat to see. So, and I liked that later on we got the Morgan versus Ahsoka rematch because their fight in Mandalorian was pretty good too. And so it was neat to see a rematch there because that was cool. I don't know. They seem like good enemies.
Yeah, the fight choreography has been good.
Yeah.
However,
Batch is dead.
As part of that sequence, it just brings up further questions. So it is cool that the Great Mothers can make zombie stormtroopers.
Yeah.
However, why didn't they just do that when their intention was to kill Ezra and Sabine earlier? Because apparently they can do it remotely because they are doing it from a different place, right? So why didn't they just resurrect the stormtroopers that were attacking the crab people and just kill them, like was Thrawn's plan the whole time?
Maybe there's a range to that spell. You know, a lot of spells
Oh
have
my
a
God.
casting
Get out,
range, right?
get out of
So
here.
usually like max 40 yards, 25 if you're playing a Drac Theory Evoker. Mages get that 40-yard range, so.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know.
Okay.
If we're putting it in World of Warcraft terms.
I see. Yeah, like D&D terms where you have to, your range of your fireball is only so long.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure
could...
there's rules like that to Dave Filoni's Star Wars universe. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, too bad he didn't tell us any of those rules.
Is there... Yeah, I mean, because you could explain that kind of thing. Because you could have one of the characters be like, just do this, and they're like, oh, they can't affect them from such a long distance, and you'd be like, oh, okay. You can make those things happen, but if you don't, then Monte Cristo questions it, and he has a right to. He has a right to. Yeah,
it's so bad.
Right. Also, can we talk about how in Star Wars, if you're a good guy flying a ship in Star Wars, for the most part, you get what I call fast and furious immunity to crashes, where you just don't die or really even get injured. If you were a main character, I should say, because obviously lots of, not main characters die in Starfighter crashes, rip Jack Porkins, rip Biggs Darklighter, rip, well, nah, you don't really care about Holdo. She broke the universe. But anyway, my point is that if you're a main character, you can get into any sort of starship crash you want. Obi-Wan and Anakin crash that big capital ship, the front half of a capital ship, into an airport on Coruscant with Emperor Palpatine in the passenger seat, in case you forgot, and everyone was just fine.
Another happy landing.
So yeah, we apply the Fast and Furious rules to Star Wars sometimes in terms of main protagonists surviving vehicular accidents, right? I just think that's a bit odd. I've got to be more
I
serious.
hadn't thought about that before, but you're absolutely right.
It's true. It's all about family. That's all Sabine needed to say. Why are you risking the entire galaxy? And she just looks into the camera and goes, because it's all about family.
Okay.
I live my life.
Some sort of justification.
I live my life 1/4 parsec at a time.
Yeah, I often think that, at the end of the day, if Hitler had just said it had all been about family, then it would have justified all of his actions, right?
To a certain extent,
it's not about
but extended family, I guess. But if you want to put it that way,
I'm just saying, so like, as long as you say it's all about family, it absolves you of every single crime. In fact, I think the United States government is considering that if you're a serial killer and you just say it's all about family, that you just get out of jail. I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
It works for late stage capitalism, Monte Cristo, and that's we brought it back around to that again. Anyway, crashing ships is okay. I did. So the thing is, here's the weird brain dichotomy that's happening to me with this show is that I love a lot of the scenes and the set pieces that are set up, but the way we get to all of those scenes is so completely stupid. Right? Because it's like, yeah, we do get to have the really neat scene of the 3 Force users laying siege to this Dathomir Witch temple, which is like, yes, this is Force users at their peak, where it's like they are a true master of the Force. They're unstoppable. You can throw any number of regular people at them and they're just going to plow right through them. And it was cool to see that, right? Because we don't get a lot of that in Star Wars, weirdly enough, where it's like you should truly be. It's like at the beginning of Phantom Menace, right? You get a little bit of a sense of that when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn start tearing their way through the Separatist ship, or they weren't Separatists yet, but the Trade Federation ship. And Newt Gunray's lackey is like, have you ever met a Jedi before? And he's like, no. And he's like, why? And he's like, we won't survive this. And that should be the attitude people have towards Jedis. When Jedis show up, if you're on the wrong side, you are going to die because they are going to tear through everything in front of you to get to you. So, and I like that we got to see some of that, because that should be how Force users are treated in this universe, is that good or bad, they are terrifying to be on the other side of. So I think that was neat that we kind of got that sense where they sort of ran their way through this temple thing.
Yeah, look, this show is just the Derek Zoolander of Star Wars. It's beautiful, but it's incredibly stupid.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, I like it. And everybody likes Zoolander. He's a nice guy. He's got a good
like
attitude.
him, but he's a moron.
Yeah. Yep. Model idiot. I love that movie. But anyway, and maybe that's why I love the show. I don't know, because I have a sympathy for that kind of character. But we did skip over something in the last episode where Balon Skull and Shin-Hati part ways, which I wasn't expecting. But it kind of made sense, because Balon Skull was like, you seem obsessed with obtaining power, and if that's your path, then I want you to go on that path and go get it, but I'm going to go for this other thing. So here's where we part ways, which I thought was a neat scene, because again, I wasn't expecting them to split up, but the reasoning he gave was fine. He's like, I've kind of taught you everything I can. You want to go in this different direction than I do, so I'm not going to force you to come with me. And so that was cool. And I feel like it gives us more growth to those two characters, which is neat. I think there's some in the middle of all the stuff. It's weird, because on the one side you have Sabine and her really nonsensical decisions, and then you have like Balon Skull and Shin-Hati, where their journey has been very interesting. We've seen some like cool character growth here and there with those characters. So I don't know why we get such good stuff with some parts of the show and such bad stuff with other parts of the show. It's very bizarre, but it's also kind of very Star Wars, I dare to say.
It's almost like Balon Skull's character is written better because they had to properly introduce him, because he wasn't in previous media.
Yeah, that could be a big part of it, honestly. That could be a big part
also,
of it.
Balon Skull, I appreciated how at the very end of the show, he just got transported into Lord of the Rings with those big statues.
Dude, that was so
and
cool,
then looking at the mountains of New Zealand. It was
the
fine,
light
but
coming
it
up
just
in the distance. Yeah,
it just looked exactly like Lord of the Rings.
That's okay. I don't mind that. We've got Hobbit crabs anyway. It's okay. They've been transported to Middle Earth. But we'll talk about the very end later, because I do have more to say about that. So what more do we really have to get through? Okay, Thrawn gets away. They get trapped there. Sabine force tosses Ezra onto the ship. So Thrawn escapes, and yet Thrawn's greatest enemy has escaped with him too. Ezra in Rebels, I get the sense, was kind of the foil to Thrawn. He was sort of his mortal enemy, right? And so you've got the two mortal enemies that have escaped. Obviously, Ezra steals a shuttle and gets away, which I don't really know how he was able to steal that shuttle, but props.
Did you like how Ezra is such a ridiculous fool? Because again, everybody in this show is stupid.
Why do you wear the stormtrooper armor?
Why are you wearing the helmet when you walk off the ship if you don't want to get shot?
Yeah, right.
Ezra,
he's a strong force guy. He's not afraid of blasters. He can just be like, boo, boo, boo.
There is no reason, once you get to the Rebel fleet, to wear the helmet as you're walking off the ship. It is so phenomenally stupid.
And it's not like the audience didn't immediately know who that was.
Exactly.
Because he even talked about stealing a outfit or something like that. And I don't know. I'm like, what is he like? Did he burn his clothes when he left Thrawn's ship? Is he nude under there? Like, why is he still wearing that outfit to begin with? As soon as I would escape Thrawn's area, I would change back into my robes. It's got to be more comfortable than that old beat up stormtrooper armor anyway. So I was a bit baffled by that scene.
Ezra wanted to sit around in a shuttle for like days in a stormtrooper outfit
Smelly
instead
old
of changing into
stormtrooper armor.
Instead of changing into sweatpants and a t-shirt.
Right.
And he especially wanted his friends to shoot him potentially when he got off of the plane.
Well, I don't think the shooting thing was not a concern to me, because we all know he could just stop those blaster shots in midair. Like he was in no danger, but it was dumb. Right, because you're just freaking people out. The only reason I can think of is that he wanted to give his friends a scare, which is part of, honestly, what I've seen from
then you have
Rebels.
to portray that moment. There is no moment. moment where
true.
we get a sense of his character as a prankster. He
didn't,
literally just walks off and is like, "Hi, it's me." It's not like, "Gotcha, guys."
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If you wanted to play it off like that, like he was playing a prank, then you have to demonstrate that it's actually a prank.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
The writing is so bad, DoA.
That was bad. But see, the thing is we go right from that scene, which I was thinking the whole time, like, yeah, it's Ezra. Yeah, it's Ezra. Okay, no reaction. Like, whatever. Yeah, Ezra's back. Great. To those great scenes of like Shin Hati, she's stranded on the planet. She doesn't get to go back with Thrawn. And so what does she do? Her master has kind of left her. So she goes to literally the only people that she knows that she kind of gets along with. And she shows up at that bandit tribe camp. And I thought that was neat. I was like, well, that's going to be an interesting direction for her. Is she going to become this like force wielding bandit warlord on this planet now, kind of? And that seems to be sort of the indication, but that seemed logical for her to go there. And you have a bit of sympathy for her too, in that she's been kind of now abandoned on this planet. And then, yeah, you have Baylan Skoll going off on his mission where whatever he's after is so important to him that he's willing to leave his apprentice behind and just, you know, kind of knowingly abandon her and go after that. And you know, we get these great final shots of Ray Stevenson as Baylan Skoll, and it kind of, you know, since we know he's sadly gone now, you know, we get this great kind of sense of finality with that character. Well, that's a great shot to end on for his run at this character, and what a great portrayal he had of this character. And you know, again, I'm all for recasting it. I think they absolutely should recast him, but you know, it's going to be tough to match what Ray Stevenson.
I'm just really sad because he was the best character in this show.
It is really,
and I was very interested in what he's doing now, and what he's up to, and the plans that he's discussing. Now, I will still say this is badly written, because again, this show's ending is just deeply unsatisfying in many ways. We don't know what Baylan Skoll is doing, so it's hard for me to care about him at the end of this episode. It's extremely hard for me to care about what Thrawn is doing, because he loaded a bunch of coffins or stasis chambers, whatever they are. They're probably either,
that's
I would guess, like, stasis chambers full of Nightsisters, or they are coffins full of Nightsisters, which can be resurrected by the Great Mothers. I think we should assume it's probably one of those things.
I think it's his entire legion that died while they were on the planet. He saved every body and saved every coffin, and now he's just going to bring his entire army back again.
Yeah, but stormtroopers are so useless. I don't know. Who knows?
If they're scary ghosts.
No. I don't think it's his troops, because the coffins are like stone and ancient, and they were loading them up at the Dathomir temple.
Speaking of that,
right?
I
think it's like some Nightsister thing.
You want to see this?
They have to be more useful to him than that. So anyway, the point is that it's really hard for us to care about what's going on, because
I'm a Force ghost now. Monty, I've come to you to bring you peace, my son. You must accept that Star Wars will have silly things that don't make sense. Don't worry, there's lightsabers and crab people. There are ships that fly very quickly and look awesome. There's neat shots of big ring ships in front of red planets that will be like, oh, that's very good cinematography. So don't worry about all the other stuff. Sabine ran off. Forget Ezra. Forget Sabine. Lars Mikkelsen looks cool.
The original trilogy made sense.
No, have peace, because fear leads to anger, and your anger is leading to hate for Ahsoka, and hate for Disney Plus television leads to suffering.
It doesn't lead to no more Disney Plus Star Wars, because I'm hoping that's what it leads to.
Oh,
but no, just the thing is, like, I care about a lot of Star Wars characters' motivations. I care that Luke wants to kill the Death Star because I know what the Death Star is. It's really hard to care about what Thrawn is doing when we have no idea at the end of this show what he's doing.
There needed to be a little bit more of a tip-off. I do agree with that, where on the one sense, I like the sort of like overarching feel of mystery towards the end of the episode. You know, what's the future look like for Shin Hati? What is Baylan Skoll really after? What's Thrawn's master plan now that he's back? I do feel like we should have gotten a little bit more of a teaser of what it was, but I'm willing to just kind of like let things be mysterious. That didn't bother me too much, but I understand why a lot of people would want a little bit more. I do get that.
I want to end this on the note that nothing actually happened in this entire series.
Okay.
Let me explain the plot of A New Hope, right? Which
I've seen
is, yeah, this country bumpkin kid has on the country bumpkin kid's planet is a crash landing with these very valuable plans to an ultimate super weapon. He meets the space wizard on this planet and ends up trying to leave, right? And save, go on this adventure trying to find this super weapon ultimately, right? He learns that he is in fact also potentially a space wizard and starts to train and learn about his own powers. They go on an adventure together with a princess and this lovable scoundrel. They go and eventually end up destroying the super weapon, right? There is a very nice arc to this.
It's a hero's journey.
What
it's just a classic hero's journey.
It's a hero's journey. What actually happens in Ahsoka? What actually happens? At the end of the day, what has happened? There's a ship that takes them to a different galaxy and then takes them back. That is the sum total of the plot of this show. I watched 8 hours for them to fly to a different planet and then fly back again.
It was a really
because we
exciting
don't know
Uber ride.
we don't know what anyone is doing. So nothing can happen.
I think you're right in a basic sense, but I think there is more to it than that. We saw Ahsoka's growth as a character as she sort of like reconciled her past with Anakin as a former master. I don't buy into any of this like Sabine being her apprentice thing because she's obviously awful with the Force. So like, why do you continue to force this? No pun intended. It doesn't seem like she's really interested, and she's not good at using the Force. So I guess, I've never seen someone like, try so hard to make someone a Jedi who shouldn't really be a good Jedi. She's better with the blasters. But I think Ahsoka did have good growth. Yeah,
but
Baylan
nothing
Skoll was a cool
happened,
character.
Noah.
Didn't really do a lot.
Nothing happened. Nobody accomplished any goals.
Thrawn did. He got back.
Exactly. That's the only thing that happened.
I think that's what
it's
the entire
literally
first
the
season
only
was
thing
about.
that happened. The only thing that happened was that Thrawn came back.
Yeah.
That's it. There isn't even any setup for something to happen in the future because there is no goal that anybody has at the end of this because they're trying to be mysterious. So we don't know what Thrawn is doing. We don't know what his objective is. It's very clear in other Star Wars movies what people's objectives are, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish. Things are happening to get them closer to that goal that is comprehensible to the audience. The only thing that happened was we saw, this is how boring the show is, Doa. They loaded cargo onto a ship and then flew it away. That is literally the last 3 episodes. It's fucking loading cargo onto a ship and leaving. It is horrible. Doa, the writing is horrible. The story is horrible.
Then why do I like this show so much, Monty?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know either.
But you agree that I'm right, that nothing has happened in 8 episodes of this show. In fact, on previous episodes of Nerd Legion, you were complaining of these scenes where nothing happens. But it's not just those scenes, Doa. Nothing ever happens in this show. Nothing ever occurred.
I think in the grand scheme of things, you're right. There wasn't really much that occurred. There was, they stole the engine, they completed the ship, they took the ship to the galaxy, they picked up Thrawn, and they got back. So that's kind of the basic plot of that. I don't know, but like I liked what they did with some of the characters that they introduced. The new characters are cool, right? Baylan Skoll and Shin-Hati. I'm interested to see what they're going to do. I'm kind of bummed Morgan Elsbeth isn't going to be in it anymore. I kind of liked her character as a villain more than a lot of villains we've seen in Star Wars in a while. So I'm kind of bummed that seems to be at an end, although we know no one's ever really gone in Star Wars, so who knows. But it's so, like I said, it's so weird. I don't understand why I detested Secret Invasion, but I really enjoyed this show. Because they have a lot of similar issues.
The aesthetic in this show is much better than Secret Invasion.
This show is it's much better to look at. That is true.
Yeah, Secret Invasion was badly crafted.
And I've always liked Star Wars more than Marvel anyway. So I have a bias in that category.
They really did nail the aesthetic of this show.
Yeah.
That's not the problem. That's not the problem with this show. The world feels awesome in this show. But the world also felt awesome in Andor, and Andor was actually a good show.
Mm-hmm.
That made sense, that had internal logic, that tracks, that had good dialogue, that had a plot. Think about everything that happened in Andor compared to this show. More would happen in a single episode of Andor than happened in this entire fucking show.
So at the end of the day, out of a scale of what scale should we use, of one zombie stormtrooper to a super, Eye of Sion spaceship, where would you rate Ahsoka?
It's pretty bad, Noah. It's pretty bad.
Less than one zombie stormtrooper?
It's not the funny thing is it's not the worst thing in Star Wars, which is really just incredible. It's really just incredible to me how shit this overall franchise is, because one of the things with Star Wars is that basically until Andor came along, everything had been shit since the original trilogy. And so, we're approaching the point where Star Wars is probably 80 to 90% shit at this stage, which is completely full of shit. It's now difficult to find the things that aren't shit in Star Wars. If you spin a wheel on a random, and you have to watch a random episode of Star Wars or a random hour of Star Wars, right? It's just a wheel with all the hours of Star Wars. You probably have like a 90% chance of just watching some total garbage.
You are right.
And then a 10% chance of it being like The Empire Strikes Back or Andor.
And I've said this many times before. I love the Star Wars universe. And what I mean by that, I love it's, honestly, I feel an affinity with Baelon Skull when he talks about the Jedi Order, because when I think about Star Wars, I would say I love the idea of it, but the reality is so much more disappointing. But yet we still love it. Yet Baelon Skull continues to go on and seek new connections to the Force, as I will continue to go on and seek, more Star Wars content that I enjoy. I am a fallen Star Wars fan. That's my personality now.
I was willing to forgive a lot about this show, as we talked about on the previous 2 episodes of Nerd Legion, as long as the Thrawn thing was interesting.
I remember. But
Thrawn is just a dumbass, which is not who the character is. He's just a complete buffoon who uses everyone else to do everything for him. DoA, imagine what would have happened if Thrawn didn't have the Great Mothers and Morgan Elsbeth.
He would have come up with a different.
He would have just gotten his ass kicked, DoA. He would have just gotten his ass kicked. But that's the whole point about Thrawn, is that the entire character's point is that it's his own plans and his own deviousness that make him cool. And so if everything he does is just using other people's powers, he fucking sucks as a character. He's pointless.
He didn't get to do a lot in this series.
He didn't do anything. He made the most obvious decisions, and his own logic doesn't even hold up, because when he declares victory, it's like what I felt like is that when he said she lost the most valuable, or she lost the only thing she couldn't afford to lose, time. It's like that picture of George W. Bush with like the mission accomplished on the aircraft carrier.
I knew that was
about
exactly
the war
where
in Iraq. It's like it's that moment, DoA, where Thrawn's just standing on the Chimera. He's like, mission accomplished, guys.
With all the stormtroopers saying behind him, they've got the big mission accomplished banner up by the TIE fighters. Oh, I love that image. Somebody please Photoshop that. That would be amazing. You're absolutely right.
I don't know what to tell you, DoA. Like he's just a dumbass. And to me, who you have to remember, I as much as I criticize Star Wars, I love Star Wars. I really just wanted the sequel trilogy to be Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy. So this was my one shot, DoA. This was the one shot
one opportunity
I had to get Thrawn being cool. And he sucked. And so
that's not
you have to understand, I am traumatized by this, okay? Because I was traumatized by the sequel trilogy being garbage and not being about Thrawn.
Yeah.
And then they dangled this in front of me, DoA. They dangled this delicious morsel of, okay, we're actually going to do Thrawn in live action. And I thought, oh man, I'm so excited. Please, for the love of God, make this good. And they just ruined his character. It sucks. Okay.
You hurt deeply. I can feel that. Yeah, that's sad. Bummer. Wow.
Why can't we have nice things?
You know, actually, we have had the conclusion of this conversation before, but we'll have it again. This is where I tell you once more, Monty, hold on. This is where I tell you once more, Monty, that you must obtain a Zen peace with yourself and Star Wars, and accept that the majority of it will be bad, but your love of the universe will keep you finding things to enjoy and looking for that next wonderful bit of Star Wars. Go forth and learn to enjoy Star Wars again.
I won't. I'm just going to watch it for this show.
Hey, that's
the
fine.
only reason why I'm still watching
the mouse
it.
Gets views. You know, he wins, I guess. But there's some good news, is that Ahsoka season 2 will theoretically come out at some point, and we'll get to find out what Thrawn's grand plan is, what Balon Skull's grand plan is.
The best thing about the writers and actors strike is that it's going to take a really long time for this to come out.
You know, I wonder if we're going to get something better out of this now that there has been this kind of break, or are we going to just get rushed trash?
No, DoA. We're going to get rushed trash, because here's the most unfortunate part. The writers managed to make it so AI couldn't write shows, which means that we are guaranteed to have worse dialogue written by Dave Filoni than we would have had from ChatGPT.
Do you think an AI would write better dialogue?
Yes.
I wonder. Somebody comment on this video and tell us like how we would find an AI to like write us some Star Wars scenes, and we'll put that to the test next episode. We'll do a little. I want to do a little scene next episode where we look at AI generated Star Wars dialogue and compare it to dialogue from Ahsoka. Maybe we'll have like a quiz where we'll have like lines and then see if we can figure out which is which. You know, AI or Star Wars writers. Yeah,
it would be impossible because the dialogue is literally Sabine saying that's too bad, which is indistinguishable from something that an AI could write. There's actually no way to know.
And then Sabine said, that is too bad. And then they fought. Yeah.
We've been looking for this. That's too bad. You're telling me ChatGPT can't write that, DoA?
I'm telling you that there's a certain amount of charm when Anakin and Padme are on the balcony in Revenge of the Sith. And he tells Padme like, no, it's because I'm so in love with you. And then she's like, so love has blinded you? And he's like, that's not what I meant. And then he turns into Darth Vader. It's 5 minutes later. It's literally how it happened. Yeah, that's right. She threw him off the balcony.
All right. Are we done with Ahsoka now?
I think so.
I can't talk about how bad this show is anymore.
I need to give you my final thoughts on it. I need to give you my final. So my final thoughts on Ahsoka, the show, is that, as opposed to the action figure, that, I just enjoyed it. I don't know. I don't like that I enjoyed it. I feel guilty for enjoying it, but I enjoyed it. It's just, it looked so good. It really was one of the best looking shows I've seen in a long time. The cinematography was fantastic. The costuming was all fantastic, except for that one really stupid like kendo training helmet thing that Sabine wore in that awful training scene in episode 3. Aside from that, it was all extremely good. And I, for some reason, I'm just willing to buy into sort of like the mystical adventure that we kind of got with this season. I liked seeing the characters. I liked, most of the things that happened, even the dumb stuff. I don't know. I was just entertained. I was entertained. And at the end of the day, what do I expect a show to do for me? At its most basic level, I, like the spectators in the Roman gladiatorial arenas, expect to be entertained. And I was. So for that, I will give Ahsoka some points. Not great if I have to give it like, my rating of Zombie Stormtrooper to like Big Awesome Ship. I would give it about, a heavily damaged Ahsoka Tano fighter ship, where it's like, it's in the middle. This might be one of my most mediocre shows again. This might kind of land in that category where it's like, it's just a pleasant watch. And there's some things I really like that are balanced up, or some things that I totally hate. And at the end, it's just sort of a neutral experience. So thank you for that, Ahsoka, for a thoroughly
They should
neutral
they
experience.
should have just they should have just let the people who made Andor make this show, and it would have been good.
They should just be able to make all Star Wars from now on. But then again,
That's very true.
Yes and no. I think Star Wars deserves difference in tone between shows here. And we got one more shout out to Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. She absolutely crushes it as that role, and I'm looking forward to seeing her back again with that. A lot of the actors in the show were very good. Not all of them, but a lot of them were very good. And so that, I think that was a positive I think we can take away from a lot of that too. So yeah, I guess that's about it. Wow. Do we want to talk about what we're doing next time? Are we really kind of like, yeah. What do you, go ahead.
Loki.
We're going
Loki season 2.
We're going back into the Marvel universe, Monty. Here we go. But a very different.
I do love Tom Hiddleston though. So I think I will at least partially be entertained by this.
And I did watch the first episode, and I gotta say I liked it a lot more than I thought I would, because I did not like Loki season 1. I really just I thoroughly did not enjoy it for many reasons. But this first episode for season 2, I had a lot of fun with it. So hey, we'll see what happens. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it, in a week when we talk about that. But for now, you are free. You're free to go once again, Monty, to go forth and be away from Star Wars for a short time, because there's all sorts of stuff coming out in the near future.
Isn't Skeleton Crew coming out at the end of this
year?
Yeah,
and like Acolyte, I think, is another show that takes place in like the end of the High Republic era, which I'm really interested in. That
might actually be good.
Yeah,
if they're like free from the constraints of the contemporaneous storylines,
please,
and everything that they fucked up with the sequel trilogy, then maybe it'll actually be good.
Yeah,
there's a lot of creative blank space there. That
Star Wars is best when it's far away from the Skywalker saga. You just get it in its own thing. Like you said, it's a big universe, lots of fun stories to tell, lots of stuff around the Force to talk about. So, we'll see. But for now, that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Until then, I don't know. Watch Ahsoka. I'd still recommend it if you're a Star Wars fan. You'll probably have a good time.
Rewatch Andor.
If you're rewatching Andor or watching Andor if you haven't seen it is always a better decision. But watch Ahsoka too. If you're a Star Wars fan, you'll probably have some fun. I think so. If you're like Monty, you'll be very angry, but that's kind of entertaining as well for people like us. So enjoy, have a good one. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.